about it, you were maybe having some kind of flashbacks, because as we're talking, I have this other dimension that just kind of floats through like I'm watching a film in ethereal ether type form as we're talking, so I can feel all this.
Well, can you hear me? Am I coming through?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
I didn't think you could, for some reason. Well, it's interesting to hear Janet talk about that, because what happened is I came on one of her radio shows and it struck a chord, and she kept asking questions like I knew what I was talking about, and I just blurted out because I was there, and I was like, oh, my God, now I've done it, because here's what happened. I died as a child. I had a walk-in encounter, and when I was sleeping, I went up on a ship at about 2 to 4. It's sort of standard in the business. We have certain ages we check in with extraterrestrial, higher source, or self, or angelic realm. It's called all kind of things. But then I was okay with that, and I wrote about it in UFO Digest. So, but then I died again. I died again, or came and went, however you want to say it. But this time I was in the 2nd grade. This is how I put the story together. These are the bumps in the road. But I died again with hepatitis. So I was in St. Francis Hospital, and I saw angels in the top of the corner. So in my little mind, I was trying to compare being in a big cloud with people, and they were said, when I was younger, that I had to go back down to the, I woke up in a field that time. This time I'm seeing angels at the top of the hospital room when they took all my blood out and tried to clean it because I had hepatitis, and they didn't know how I got it. But when they did that, it made me leave my body, and they told me, no, go back in my body. But I didn't go to heaven or to a spacecraft. I just stayed and sat above my body and saw 2 angels. So that was, they told me I was going to do wonderful things and all this. So I went the next year. I had to get better, but I willed myself to White Sands. And that was where my uncles worked at Los Alamos. And one uncle took my grandmother and me. And it was very interesting. I got to go into Carlsbad Caverns underground. And then over there, I did get to see my family again, because we were in the White Sand Dunes, and they put my cousin to sleep, a little 10-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. And they were the ones that told me, look, a flying saucer, as it came over, and it went down in a little gully between the White Sand Dunes. And they went to sleep, and I got to go down. So that was that was the first time I'd been on the second time I'd been on a spacecraft, or what someone might call another dimension, or how they can come and go. But then after that, I just went on, and I had extrasensory perception in my life. But I never put together the story that Janet told until way, way later. I'd already been writing for UFO Digest, and I was already sort of out, I guess, when I was awakened through the experiences of having life after death, or out-of-body or near-death experiences. But when I died again, I guess you'd say the third time, or bump in the road, was I had my 4th child, the one that just passed, and she came in knowing she was extraterrestrial, and I think we talked about that on the first part of this session,
that was great.
Oral book.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came in, and she died in my stomach, and then I looked at my mother, and the heartbeat stopped, and that's when they took me to, I said, am I going to die? And the doctor finally got there, because early in the morning, and he looked in my eyes, but he got right up to my eyes because I was already sort of out of it. I guess I'd like 60/40 was my blood pressure, but I was, dying. So I remember looking right in his eyes, and I could barely hear myself talk. And I said, doctor, and am I going to die? And he said, not if I can help it. And that's when they raced me through the lights overhead and pushed the doors open, and it was real cold in the operating room. And the anesthesiologist, they had me sign a piece of paper because they were going to tie my tubes off so I couldn't have any more babies. It was already prearranged because I had 4 by the time I was 20. I don't know how old I was in 74, 22 or 3, because I was born 12/26/51. Anyway, it was a great. So I couldn't sign because I was already too low in my body, or too, I couldn't move my arm. I remember the board and me trying to say I can't. but they pushed me on the over on the where they put your feet up in the stirrups, and he was telling them to hurry up and give me the so he could, cut the baby out because the baby had already flatlined, and then I was right behind him. And he said, I can't. She is 60 over 40 and dropping. She's not going to make it. So, I was pretty much gone. So he cut my stomach open without anything and pulled the baby out, which she was blue and had the cord around her neck. And I went up overhead, but I remember a nurse screaming. I think because she knew I wasn't dead yet, and he just cut me open right in front of her and pulled the baby out real quick because they were, the baby was already dead in the room where we were waiting to go into the operating room, wherever they do that with nurses.
So they didn't do any anesthesia?
Oh, no, nothing. No, they just ripped me open and took the baby, but I was already out of my, on top of my body watching it. I'd already come out the top head chakra. So I was already watching from over my head, but I could still hear and see. So I remember watching them and hearing and I stayed in the room. I didn't know I was dead, but I stayed in the room watching, sort of like ghosts. You come out, but you're still involved in what's going on. So, but I was watching them clean the baby up, and she wouldn't breathe, and they took that snorkel and patted her. A nurse there was a couple of nurses in there, but they took her over and was trying to get her to breathe. I kept saying, breathe, breathe. I remember saying that, or in my head with ESP, because I don't believe your mind and your brain is your essence or your soul. So, but I was talking, and I was saying, breathe, breathe, and then they finally got her to cry, and I stayed long enough for them to put the her ink pad on a piece of paper. And because I saw them prick and take blood out of her heel, and I saw them ink pad on a piece of paper her foot. I guess that's for the little hospital thing. But they went ahead and cleaned her up, and then the nurse looked at the clock. And when she looked at that clock, I zoomed off. So I went zooming like on a white escalator. Zoom, I went up and left this area, and no ship picked me up, but I went through several layers or the stars and through the galaxy and on up and through the universe. And I say several universes because I was able to go up and go through, I would say about five levels, but I don't know for sure. I was boom, you just travel. But that's when I talked to people, and I heard voices, and it wasn't on the hospital room. It was voices where I was going, but I had just about reached my destination when I could hear them. So I said, wait, I want to go back. And all of a sudden it was like this escalator stopped, or whatever capsule or whatever I was in as a essence. And the escalator slowed down. I call it escalator because of the way it was going. It wasn't, of course, through the universe. It was some kind of, however we travel, light years or light speed. But it was two people talking. I would think it was a man and a woman, or my guides, or God. I don't know, because I didn't go over where you see the pearly gates or the beautiful land, or I just was in limbo right before the next level. And they said two things, well, at least two things to me, because I've sort of forgotten them over time. But I remember one of them was, I said, nobody would say anything. So I said, well, what will happen to my children? And so the first thing they said was, let's see, what will happen? They said, nothing. And then they said, I said, well, I want to go back somehow with them, just talking ESP. And they said, well, all children would be your children. And they said, you'll experience more pain than you've ever experienced before, but it's talking with your mind. And I said, I could see this opening portal of gold and hear people, but I didn't quite get there. So it seemed like forever, but it was just a few seconds. And I guess they talked to each other without me hearing it, because I didn't hear the decision. But then all of a sudden, that feeling of going like up through space turned and brought me right back down. And then I came all the way back, shoom through the different levels. And I know when I was going up that the stars, the one thing I remembered was all this Akashic field energy, all this knowledge came into me. It was amazing, the most amazing thing I'd ever felt going through the stars. But coming down, I don't remember that, of going back through. But I remember hitting my body and coming up off the gurney. So I hit back with so much force that it banged my soul back into my body. So I came back. Of course, I didn't have enough blood. There wasn't enough blood in the hospital because I'd lost just about, it was over 6. I don't know if we held 8 pints. I was only short 1.5 pints, and they didn't have enough positive, however many I needed, 6 or 7. It was close to the entire, but I had just enough left, because they'd cut my stomach open, you can imagine, and all the blood, and then I'd already been hemorrhaging. That's I had placenta previa. So that's why the big hole in all the blood, I'd lost all the blood because I was hemorrhaging from I had fallen going in, I figured this out later, that I'd fallen going in to teach baton on a wet cement at the Houstons when I was teaching children, because I had 3 girls and, expecting the 4th one. So I'd fallen on my butt one day going in. So it started a slow, tiny pin, and I guess it just finally burst open. So that's why I died. Oh. But anyway, I came back, and that made me understand a lot about past lives. They started coming in, but I didn't know how to deal with it. So it took me a while to learn to walk and talk again, about 3 months. But I stayed in ICU. My mom said I would raise up, and I remember dying and coming back where they used the paddles 2 or 3 times to keep me in my body because they were trying to get blood in me. So I stayed in there so long that it was 2.5 weeks before Mother said, "Don't you want to see your baby?" But my stepfather came to ICU, and they couldn't get me to talk or to do anything because I was so gone from no blood. So I never got to see the baby till they took me home, and I could barely walk. It was either 2 months. I didn't get to bond with the baby, with Gigi. So she was born with a tail. I remember they clipped her tail off, and that's sort of why they clipped her tail off. But when she died, she talked to me about it and figured that was part of their alien DNA, because that was the part they couldn't get out of her tailbone, or where they'd clipped was the part in the alien DNA at Moffitt Cancer Hospital. They'd cleaned her blood up, at this 40s, just recently in 2018 when she was rebirthed in May of 2017.
So how do they do that?
They take all your blood.
Do that? Because some other people, I think I told y'all about Terry Ling being interviewed on George Nuri with Cheryl Jones about that. I haven't taken the time to listen to it, but they had said it had been the first scientific break of finding the DNA for the ET.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what the topic was.
Well, they read it. They read. Yeah, go ahead. They read it.
They have to look for something. They have to look for something in the blood.
Right, it's a whole big process.
They're finding the alien DNA.
Do you guys know?
Well, yeah, they study the.
No, I'm not a geneticist.
Right, but there's some trigger in it. There's some kind of protein in there, I think, that designates some of that stuff.
Well, they have T cells. There's markers. They can read every bit of it, of your DNA, of course. You know how that is, and they have like 4 numbers and all that, and the strands. But they can read all that.
Yeah.
Well, she was in a cancer.
Try not to.
I think some people.
You guys are doing a lot of crosstalk, and you try not to crosstalk so much.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think some
slow
of
down
the
and breathe.
I think some of the doctors that I've talked to in the past call it trash in the blood. And it means they don't know, probably. So it's interesting. I don't know how that they could tell how to tell that. I want to know, though.
Well, you